Thank you, Val, and thank you, everyone. Wow, what a wonderful world we live in, huh? I hope this webcast is finding you well and keeping your head above water and keeping sane, and more importantly, keeping away from people. I am sure throughout this presentation you will hear noises, hear dogs, so I do apologize for that in advance, but hopefully everyone here can understand why that is happening. So with that, let's get into what's happening in the Dynamics SL world, a more solid world, I'd say right now. But let's talk about what we are going to cover in today's presentation. So we'll go over some lifecycle things. Again, probably you are all well aware of some changes that we've had with the versions of SL that are supported, but just in case, I will quickly go over that. And then we're going to kind of go over features by version, what started off in 2018, what we've added in CU1, CU2, CU3. And actually, after we're done, we'll talk at a real high level some of the CU4 features that are currently being worked on as we speak. After we get done that, we'll do some high-level review of some really important topics that are Microsoft related. Some of these, again, are the things, as I always say, that I think are going to make a huge difference in your SL world. So I want to definitely highlight those. We'll talk about roadmap, meaning when is this next version or next two versions coming out, which we'll talk about at a high level. And as Valerie said, if you have any questions during it, please leave them. This is pretty jam-packed, so if we don't get to them, please make sure you do leave them there. If we don't get to them within the time, I would be happy. I will email you any responses we don't get to. But with that, Lifecycle. What has happened over the last, I guess now 3 months, is the change from mainstream to extended support for SL 2015. I guess we all know just at a high level what's the difference between mainstream support. Oops, I forgot to update my slide. Mainstream support, you get hot fixes and year-end updates, and I forgot to update this. I did change my little wording, but I apologize. This little no hot fixes and no year-end updates is now a part of SL 2015. So this is the perfect year to start your journey. Go ahead and meet with your partners and make sure you understand what you need to do to get from SL 2015 or SL 2011, or if you happen to be on SL 7, to get that process started so you can get up to the latest and greatest. Obviously, this is because you need any hot fixes you might need, any year-end updates are not going to be able to take place. And for definitely, if you are a payroll person, we're already seeing there definitely will be changes. Things are coming down from different states that we're updating, but again, we need to make sure you're on the latest and greatest versions to be able to get that type of support. Any questions on that? Talk to your partner or feel free to email me those as well. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what came out in SL 2018. This slide really is just to talk about the look. You'll know you're in SL 2018 because we've gone from colorful icons back to single colors. Don't know why, but that's the way I was told it needed to be. Also, we have our little Dynamics logo. The sales are gone, the D is in. All right, so what was the big feature? Well, the biggest feature, well, not the biggest, but one of the biggest impacting features I really think that we had was the addition of approvals. Now, where approvals started is they started in the voucher and adjustment entry screen. So what was the big deal here? What was the whole idea that we wanted to segregate duties? You know, we wanted Val is my manager, Jeff is the data entry person, and Val just needed that little extra time because she wanted to make sure that when Jeff was doing his data entry that his batches were correct before he released them into the system. Obviously, we know the best way to make an edit is before you release that batch. So this is where the approvals and the segregation of duties came into. Okay, so how does this work? Well, if you do turn this on, what will happen is if Jeff is the data entry person and he goes in and he tries to release the batch later and hits the finish button, he's going to get this message. It must be approved before you can move forward. Now, as a little FYI, jumping ahead, we are editing this doc handling screen, so we remove release now and release later in the future based on a lot of feedback, but right now, if you're in SL 2018, you will get this message. Basically, this says can't do anything other than save. So what do I need to do? Well, the only action I can take would be to leave it at no action or to submit it for approval. Now, when I submit it for approval and I click on the Finish button, that saves it and it puts it in a new status of W, which means it is waiting. It's waiting to be approved, waiting to be rejected. It's waiting. We haven't had that batch ready to move forward, so that is our new status of W. Now, once it is in that status, how does someone approve it? Well, there are 3 ways that you can approve. The first way, Val can come right into the voucher adjustment entry screen, see those items that are in a W status and open them up one at a time. Now, when she opens up the batch, she will see that she has the ability, if she wants to go document, or in this case, reference number by reference number, and load them one at a time and choose to approve or reject the line items that are in the detail area. The other way that she could do it is just, now I do have to look through all of them, but I'm not going to go one by one and choose them. I probably would do this, and Val might do it as well. Choose that, yeah, I'm going to go through every single document because that's what I want to do, but I'm just going to do the approval or the rejection once. Now, for the approvers, they do have a little extra ability here. What it allows them to do is, this really is their personal preference. As an approver, they can actually edit the detail lines. So if Jeff chose the wrong project for the second line item and she needs to make that adjustment of the wrong sub-account, the approver can make that adjustment on the fly. Now, it's up to them to say, well, I'm going to make that change and approve it and move it forward, or they can choose to reject it and send it back to Jeff and say, hey, Jeff, you need to go ahead and address this. This is your issue. You missed a specific entry, or you put the wrong value in. So again, totally her choice, but again, that gives that a capability for her to reject it or to make changes and approve it. Now, they can put in a generic reason. It is rather short. I think it's like a 60 character, which if you had more information, you probably would need to email them, but it gives a way to put a reason in or let it generically populate that. Now, when Jeff comes into the screen, he's going to see his batch is now at a new status that he's not used to, called approved, and then everything is normal. He can do a release now or release later and so forth. So real powerful functionality. And I talked about the fact that you could do this in a couple different ways. I said you could go right into the screen and approve it. The other ways we can use through one of the new things we'll talk about today, which is called Power Automate or Flow. Now what that is we've actually set it up to automatically email people when things need their approval. So what it will do is we'll go through, and this is all generically created, but it's all completely customizable. So we created a generic email that will tell you the date it was created, what's the batch number, what's the total amount, who's the vendor, what's the total amount for each vendor. You know, some people that will be enough. We've also added a link. If you happen to be in your system where you can get logged onto SL, you could click that link. It'll pull up the actual screen so you can look at it. But please note, this can be customized. If there are fields or there's detail you want to add to this flow or this Power Automate can be opened up and altered to your liking. Now, the nice thing about this email functionality, if Val looks at this and goes, you have 50, 75, 125 vendors. Yeah, Kim, yeah, that looks fine to me. Val can be on her phone at home, not have to log into SL, go ahead and choose to click to approve or reject. So she could approve, put a reason for approving, reject, put her reason for rejecting. But the nice thing about it is she does not have to get into SL to actually approve it and move this process forward. And the thing I like about it as well is that when you choose to approve or reject, the email permanently changes. So Val doesn't have to wonder, did I approve this one? When she opens up that same email, it looks different. It's saying, oh, here's what you did. You approved it at this date and time, or you rejected it at this date and time. So it is permanent. It's not a guess. I can't accidentally approve and reject something and go back and forth and keep on opening up the same email. It actually changes that, which I really like that. Now, another thing is that the Power Automate, actually there is a app for that, as there's for lots of things. So you can use Power Automate to go ahead and view your flows and do the same thing via an app on your phone in case that's something you'd rather do instead of looking at your emails. Now, otherwise, you can also do another way, which is through another technology through Microsoft called Power App. Now, Power App, what we did there is someone came to us and said, we like the idea of you allowing us to approve it via email, but sometimes we want to know the history. And I don't want to have to log into SL to see exactly what's going on with those batches. Could you create an application that anybody who has proper access and given access can go in and see how those batches are doing? So that's how it started off. It started off as just a way to show you what's the status of your batches, and then we turned it into a little bit more with some thought here that, hey, why not make this another way that you can actually approve or reject a batch? So that's exactly what we did. So let's just kind of walk through it. On the left-hand side are your different statuses that you can go ahead and pare down or filter out what you're going to see on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, we're seeing the batches that are available, and it actually knows who I am, and it looks and it says, okay, you can look at batch number 1, but you can't do anything with it. You can't approve or reject it. But for number 126, you actually can. And obviously, you're going to want more information than this. So you can actually click on that item, drill down to the details, and now we're showing you that approval history that people requested. And you can even get more detail to find a little bit more about it. Is okay, yep, it looks like it needs 2 people to approve it. So far, no one's approved it, and it was created on the 24th of the month. So you can get more details. Now, this particular example, there's only 1 document in the batch, but if you had multiple, you could see all those different items listed in there as well. Now, the other way they've added is now I'm sitting in my approval history for this one, and I want to jump to another batch. So that is possible as well. And if I go ahead and click here, click on a different number, it will go ahead and it jumps you right into number 127. And the nice thing about that is that now I can see just another example for that, and I see, yep, in this case, the approver 1 has approved it, which is my person called MGR1 or Manager 1, and it's now waiting for the second person to approve it, who's in this case would be approver test 2. So again, keeping track of that history. Now, another feature is if I want to get back to the home, I hit the home button. And another feature people said is we like the idea of the emails. And with that email notification, it is usually on a time sensitive. So you tell it how frequently you want it to check and send emails. So you might decide that you send emails once a day at noon or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But in some cases, people said, that's great, but what if I'm in a situation where we just put one in, it's after 3 o'clock, and you know what, I need to get this thing looked at. I need to get the email sent. I don't want to wait until tomorrow. I don't want to have to jump into Flow. So what we've done is we made it so you can be right inside of here. Click on this little email icon. It'll ask you, okay, well, what do you want me to send? And I can tell them, hey, there's some new items that went out just about an hour ago or 2 hours ago or whatever the time frame. I can hit the send button. It'll automatically send that email to the appropriate people. So we've kind of thought of all the different scenarios that you could walk through where you're like, I need it now. I want a different way to get to it. Again, we've heard all the requests. And you can see the nice thing about these Power Apps and Power Automates is we can kind of change them on the fly and make them work the way people need them. Last but not least, as I said, you can actually approve right inside of here. So if we see these buttons, it tells me I can actually approve it. Choose the approve button. Just wants to verify that I want to do it. Click on yes, and that batch has been approved. So how do I set it up? Well, inside of the approval maintenance screen, we do have the ability for you to check that screen, choose whether you want to do approvals for all companies or have it different for each company you have in the system. I can choose to have approvals by groups. And in this case, what will happen is approval 1 is the name of the group that we've set up. And basically the way it works is first come to first to get it wins. So if Val gets to it first and approves it, then it's done and it moves on. In this case, there is a second approver who's set up to be web user 10. Again, we can set it up to be just 1 person, just 2 approvers. They can be at groups or be people. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there. So that was a big change, and hopefully you hung with me because we'll talk about that again and then just a little bit where we've added that to another screen. Now, another item that was added in 2015 was the idea of changing the way our lookup lists look. In SL 2015, we added the ability that when you went into the screen, we have this new kind of a quick query look where I can type in the value ON and it will search in the value name or the field name and see anywhere it finds ON, it's going to display that person in the list. Before that, it was more of a begins with type of search. So if you had begins with, you typed in the letter T, it would show you all the ones that started with T. So what we added in here is people said, I want to be able to switch between, some people, longtime SL users love the begins with, some people love the new contains. What we were basically asked for is, can you add both to the screen? Because some people like some people like the other. Now you can switch on the fly between a begins with search or a contains switch search right on the fly. Now, where can you set this? Well, we can set a default behavior for you right inside the user maintenance screen. But think about this, user maintenance screen. Okay, this probably makes sense table-wise. This is where I want to store the data. But you know what? I can't get in, Jeff can't get in there. So we'll talk about, in just a few slides here, that this has been enhanced so anybody can set their own default behavior going forward. Jumping around, we'll talk to some project enhancements that happened in 2018, the original 2018. Was the ability to output preliminary and final invoices to directories. Now, the problem a lot of times comes is that it is set inside of preliminary invoices that you would then print this out and print it to a printer. It would have to print out and wait for the printer to be ready and so forth. People said, well, what if I just want to print this out to a file, to like a PDF file? So you can set that up to print to a PDF. You can choose to print it out to a local file, local directory. You can actually put it to a SharePoint site or a DocShare site. And what's the SharePoint site is a site where we've got our basically a place where we can store things for a manager or for a project. Now, the benefit here is I can store all those items for a specific project in one location, or that's something that's for a specific manager to review, out to a location and say, hey, go out to those SharePoint sites, take a look at them and start looking at them. This means that they can review them, be able to see if there's any issues and get back to you with any adjustments that need to be made. Same thing with the final invoices as well. So we work with whether you're doing preliminary or finals. So a big change and a big enhancement that makes it easier with the invoicing process. Next was vendors, being able to make a vendor inactive, something that we haven't had. We have this idea of hold, but it did a very limited things to it. So basically we've always had inactive customers, so why not have inactive vendors? And that's what we've done. The request was basically, if a vendor is inactive, I don't want to be able to create any new purchase orders for a vendor that's inactive, and that is exactly what's happening. Second of all, I don't want to be able to create any new voucher adjustment entries. I don't even want to be able to cut a check if that vendor is inactive. So if Val is the customer or Val is the company and I am that vendor, it gives her ability to say, hey, listen, something's going down with Jeff. I just want to cut everything off for right now. I'm sure we'll work things out, but it allows her to really kind of turn Jeff off in the system from being able to be used. Now, we talk about the areas here, but where else does it show up? Well, he will stop showing up on those possible value lists in a couple different areas here. And I apologize, I'll talk about it in a second. But one thing to note is that when you make Jeff inactive, it is going to do a few little checks. One, it's going to see if there are any purchase orders sitting out there for Jeff. Because if they are, well, then you know what the issue is going to be is that we're not going to be able to move forward with those purchase orders. They're kind of stuck where they're at. So we want you to know about it, but we'll let you go forward. The next one is that, hey, you know what? If you try to make him inactive, I can't let you make him active because Jeff might be a primary vendor set up in one of the maintenance screens in the system. We point them out, but the idea here is that you need to remove Jeff as a primary, for this case, for a inventory item because he's no longer an active vendor. So first you need to make those changes, then you can make him inactive. Where does it react? Where does it impact? Well, just a few screens, as you can see. So all these screens, Jeff will stop showing up on and won't be able to move forward with anything around them. So that is the idea behind it. Now, the great thing about it is that as soon as Val and Jeff come to an agreement and things are fine, we can turn him back on. He's active. It's not a prolonged step. It really is changing him from inactive to active. He will stop showing up again. He'll be able to cut checks for them and go forward. But it is a nice capability to be able to turn them off as we need. And if you think about it, maybe you've got some vendors that have been sitting out there that you really want inactive, that you want people to stop using. Maybe you've created a duplicate of them, a newer version of them. It gives you a great capability of removing those vendors that we no longer use. Now, one of the things that, again, I won't go deep here because hopefully you're very familiar with this feature, is a feature inside of the journal transaction screen that allowed you to do reversing and corrections or copying of journal transactions. Now, one of the things that was brought to our attention is that, I know this is a little bit more of a bug, but I definitely want to point this out for my project user, is that it did actually not correctly update the project information. So if you did a journal transaction entry against a project, those credits would become negative against the project and debits become positive against the project, which is completely opposite of what we needed to happen in the project. So we've actually updated the process so it actually looks and says our project's involved when it makes the appropriate adjustment entries to those projects so those projects are updated correctly. So if you've ever kind of shied away from that screen for doing project adjustments, now you have the capability of doing so, knowing that will work the way that you need it to. The next were some enhancements around time and expense entry. At a real brief discussion here, what did we do to this screen? One of the main things that people came to us and said is, yes, I know that you've got this wonderful web apps for adding attachments to travel expenses and so forth, and we've got the ability for the managers to approve it, but some people accidentally approve things and don't actually send them back when receipts are not in there. What happens is the problem is that sometimes those things get approved or completed, and when they come into this screen, when they're in that certain statuses, you would no longer be able to attach receipts. So let's take the scenario. Jeff is doing his expense report. He does not put a receipt in. Val goes ahead to approve. It's busy. She hits the approve button. It goes through. When it comes to this screen, the accounting people look, they don't see the receipts, go, ooh, there's something wrong here. Well, with that, what they can actually do is in the past, they were kind of stuck. They could not attach a receipt to that. In the new version of the screen, it's been made so these icons are always enabled, so no matter the status, they can add a receipt to make sure that it's in compliance. Another enhancement is around our homepage, a feature that we've had for many years, but one that we have updated. Now, what does this mean? This means that inside of SL, you have the ability to view a homepage or web page. In this case, I have customer source showing up inside of SL. So I don't need to exit out and go into another browser or anything. I can actually view pertinent information inside of my web browser that's built into the SL screen. Kind of cool. What we've done here is enhanced it so it works with modern websites. So in the past, you might run into some issues or some error messages might pop up when trying to view things. It's now been made to work with modern web pages and so forth. And what we did to kind of promote that idea, because a lot of people forgot that that was out there, is we created a new feature for admins that if an admin wants to set your homepage to something, let's say it's an internal site, a SharePoint site, customer source, whatever happens to be, we added a feature so that if they want to set it up inside of the user maintenance and they want to copy it to someone else, there's now a new copy screen that would allow them to copy it to one or multiple people, one or multiple groups of people. And the idea here is it makes it simpler so that we can get the data out there, people can view it and view that information inside of there. So again, just kind of enhancing something that's out there and a new way to promote it. So we've gone through 2018 and 2018 CU1. That's a lot. We've done a lot so far. And now we're going to start jumping into CU2 and CU3 items. So for my CU2, at a high level without going too deep, we've added new quick queries to the system. Well, and these are really quick queries that we got right from the consultants themselves. These are common questions that consultants are asked when it comes to project items. What are the allocations? If I was about to run the allocator, what would be subject to be allocated? If I ran the allocator, what are the results? What happened when I ran allocations? What were the billing results? If I went to do the billing transaction load analysis, what is eligible? And in the financial transaction transfer analysis, what is eligible to be run in the FTT? So where these came in is people wanted to know, do I have things set up correctly? Is my allocator going to process things the way that I expect it to do? Well, you can go here and run that quick query, see what the results would be and go, oh, wait a second, that's not what I expected. Make your adjustments. So these are great tools to use as you have things set up, as you make adjustments to your project allocations or any of the items in project. They're great tools to look at what's out there, see if there's something stuck out there that you might not have accounted for. Make those adjustments, be able to run those processes with confidence. So first of all, I'm very thankful to the consultants that that we're happy to provide those, but also it shows you we're making it much more self-sufficient for end users to be able to look at that data. The next one is a very simple, but yet a very powerful feature. This is around the release GL batches screen. And the idea behind here is one, is the period to post field never displayed on this screen. So if you were in here to release batches, a common question we had is, well, really as me getting ready to release the batch, I'm assuming that the batches are correctly, but I'm not sure if I want to be able to see the period to post. And if you look at this right now and you see 06 of 2025, you're gonna go, oops, Jeff did something wrong. He put the wrong period to post. So what we've done is one, now you can see it, so that's great. Two, we've set it up so that you can actually, if you're given the right access, you can go into initialize mode, put in the proper period to post information, and then hit begin processing. And that could be for one or multiple entries in there. So with that functionality, if there were 10 or 15 batches that were all to the wrong place, I don't have to open them up individually. I can do the editing here, hit select begin processing, and it will actually post that to put this in the right period, post it, and now my batch, without having to actually go into the journal transaction screen, I can actually make sure that they're all to the right place. Simple in idea, but very, very powerful and effective. And you'll see later where this comes up in some other modules that you'd be expecting this in. All right, the next one. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. One of the big things of Microsoft's Dynamics SL's project feature is our ability to track time and expense. One of the things for doing time is that you need to set up your week maintenance, which tells it, is your week 1 week? Is it 2 weeks long? How long is that? So you have to go in and physically enter in each time frame period into the system manually, which for a person who has to do these type of demos for time entry in the web apps, it's kind of a pain. Sometimes the screen, to be honest with you, because every field inside that screen is a key field, it doesn't always work. See, everywhere this is a red field, it means that if I fat finger or mess up or something, sometimes these fields can get off and I might lose a lot of data entry. So what we've added here is this top section, which I'm super excited about. Now the idea behind it is you tell us when do you want us to start? What's that first date? What's the end date? And then we're going to tell us, well, and how frequently are you doing time cards? So what happens is I can put that information in, hit the begin processing button, and what it does is it creates a pop-up screen where it says, okay, based on what you just told me, here's what I'm about to put into the system. Now what I really like about this is it creates it in a preview screen where I can view it. I am fully editable here. I can change things on the fly. I'm not stuck to this. I can make edits. You can see there we're seeing all this information. Then when I'm done and I'm happy, all I need to do is click OK, and it automatically adds it to the end of my list. Now this is great for companies. I've run into companies where for some reason they don't put in the time periods except for the 1 month at a time. So this is great for them, and it's also great for people who say, I just want to set up the whole year. I don't want to be bothered with it. They do it once, it sets it up. They don't have to do all the data entry. So great bit of functionality. That's really for my project week ending maintenance people. Now, another thing that was added is something that's been long in our system, but has never been really enforced. There is the idea in SL that when you set up a project, you have a start date and an end date. Well, end dates, to be honest with you, have been there forever, but end dates, they don't do anything. They are strictly there for informational purposes. So the request was, yeah, I know I can come down here and turn things on and off as I want, but what about the fact that I just like to automatically stop showing these projects when they get to their end dates? What a novel idea. So we have added that functionality. Now, out of the box, you can leave end date validation to none. Nothing will be different, or you can set it to project or task level. Now what it means at a project level is if you pass that end date, that project will stop showing up when you're doing your time entry or expense entry. Great feature, okay? This project ends at the end of February. No need for them to put their time past then. I don't need to worry about turning things on and off. If I do that, it's going to be set up and done. Perfect. The other way you can do is you can do it as a task level, because for each task you can set up an end date as well. So let's say task 1 ends on 2/1, task 2 ends on 3/1. It actually will work. Your projects will show up, but your tasks will only show up that are available. So very powerful functionality, great enhancement. Very, very excited about this, and we'll talk about it in our next release that we're about to talk about, how we've even taken that a step further. All right, so very, very cool. And that's just reiterating, this is where it happens. It restricts you from doing entry for these items in the time and expense entry, as well as the web apps as well. Now, another enhancement request came and is the invoice and adjustment posting screen, a long time screen that allowed you to be able to select criteria based on sub-account, currency, biller, cutoff, and so forth. What the ask was is that, well, we have a need for doing additional things. Sometimes we need to be able to select by specific projects. I only want one or several projects, or one invoice, or selecting the invoice and adjustments that are out there. So selecting projects or selected invoice and adjustments are options, and then it enables that grid that allows us to define what those values are. So getting much deeper into exactly what the invoice and adjustment posted process should be processing. So again, great functionality, great ideas, and continuing to enhance it to meet their needs. Now the next one was a service call item. Yes. One of the things that was built into the standard service call entry screen is that once you choose the service call and you choose a site, it would lock down that site, which makes sense. Once you have a service call set up and they're going to the Delaware location and we start working on it, we don't want people to be able to change it because it's going to really throw things off. But the item here is that when it's a quote, maybe I don't know, is it the Pennsylvania, is it the Maryland, is it the Delaware location that we're going to be servicing? I'm not sure. So what we've done now is when you are doing a quote, that field is enabled. So that means right now we chose that one location, but we could choose another location as well. As long as we're in that quote status, we can change it around as much as we want. So great request, great enhancement, and great feature. Next, let's jump into what happened here just in CU3. And just as an FYI, your CU3 came out at the very end of December, a late holiday present, and CU3 is available now for you to install. So what did we add there? Well, you're going to hear us kind of going back. So obviously, I do a lot of these presentations, whether this nowadays all webinars or whether I do them live. I get lots of great feedback on new features that we've added in SL 2018. And then I'm able to take feedback from those and add them to the product. So here's an example. Someone came to me and said, hey, love the idea that you can set my begins with or contains clause to default. First of all, thank you for letting me change. 2, I like that you can set up what the default should be, but you know what? I see that you added it to the user maintenance screen and nobody has access to that really wants to change this. So why not go to the options area and add that capability? So I can set what my default should be by just going over to the options, choosing that option, clicking OK, and saving that. Now it's going to default based on that. The next is, they said, we love the approval process. Let's take to the next step. The journal transaction screen now has the approval process. So we can turn it on, we can see the same thing, lets me know it needs to be submitted for approval before it can move forward. And then the same idea, I'm not going to go through it again, but you get the idea. You can approve in the actual journal transaction screen, you can approve it through an email, you can approve it through the application. Those same things that we talked about for payables happens here in journal transaction as well. So a great feedback, great functionality now available in yet another screen inside of Dynamics SL. How do I set it up? Just as we talked about before, but now you notice there it's real. There is a journal transaction screen and you can set up the same type of limitations as you had before. The next is adding period to post. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole step because you can understand that now the period to post has been added to the AR, release AR batches screen. We've also enabled it in initialize mode so you can change that value. Same thing for the accounts payable. Again, people love the general ledger. They love the idea behind it. Said, yep, let's put it everywhere else that we need it as well. So now that is available as well. Another building on top of things. People love the idea of the end date, and they said, you know what? I know I can go down here and turn things off in the different modules, but you know what? I'd like it in the AP, AR, and GL screens. I'd like to be able to turn that on as well so that there are no adjusting entries can be made in those 3 screens as well. And how does that work? The same ways we had before. The big difference here is that it only impacts these 3 screens. In GL, we have the journal transactions, we have the voucher adjustment entry screen, and the invoice and memo. Those three screens are the screens that are impacted by turning on either GL, AP, or AR. So again, taking that existing idea, building it out, getting more information, more ideas, and enhancing them. So you can see, obviously, we work very closely with you as customers to get that type of feedback and make sure that we're adjusting the product as needed. Now, the next one was our first attempt at some additional information that we think is very important to you. And I'm kind of jumping ahead into my Power BI. We'll talk about what Power BI is in a second, but here are some early screenshots of what we did. We've been able to create customer dashboards, and in fact, we're going to come out with an updated version of this here in CU4, but allows you to provide you high-level information. For example, how many items are receivable, what is the total receivable amount. The way this report works is up at the top, you've got different ways you can filter it. We can hide that filter, and then we can see all the data on the screen, be able to see the details, of the different items that are out there. And what we've done, and we're going to get ready to release, is more of these, I call them, I guess, SL grids, are going to turn into actual graphical things that you can then drill down to, but it will give you a much better view of the information, which we're getting ready to release here in CU4. But again, the idea is taking things like summary information, sales information, AR detail, AR aging, sales detail, and providing it to you in a way. And the benefit of this is that this is something that can be accessed anywhere. Now, obviously, I need to have access rights to it, but I can put it out where I need to get access to the information and be able to view the items that are in there. So we'll talk a little bit more about Power BI in just a few minutes, actually, but just letting you know that these are available now, and we're going to add some more and some updates, some of the existing ones that we have out there. I'll skip this. Obviously, this is the payroll and year-end update. The reason why I leave this in here is that if you did know, there are some things just to keep as a top of head. There were some minimal W2 form layout changes that we included. But one of the questions I get a lot is the fact that there was some changes in the way that we're doing W4s. Now, we technically don't do W4 reports out of the system, but there needs to be a way to keep track of these new marital statuses and the details set up. You can see right here, whether it's, head of household, hire, and all these different items that you see here. Even though we technically don't do this inside of here, we don't do W4s, we have added that capability to our employee maintenance screen to be able to keep track of it. I'm assuming there will be more changes here. A great reason why we want you to get onto SL 2018. So if there's any new changes this year, that we can make those adjustments and going forward. So that's kind of a note to that. Now, so that's kind of a very quick run through what we have in SL 2018, CU2, CU1, CU2, CU3. Okay, I can't speak today. So that's all great stuff. We were able to run through a lot of this stuff at the end a little bit fast because it is building on top of things that are already out there. But hopefully you continue to see the investment. Obviously, with each of those releases, we continue to do hot fixes and anything items that come up. So these are the current items that are scheduled for CU4. One of the first things is an approval enhancement. Some feedback we've gotten on the approval process, some of the drop-down boxes, the way that we're doing things, we're going to make some enhancements based on some really good feedback. The next thing is time entry email notifications. One of the big things we were asked about is, I want to be able to automatically set one of those cool, you have that cool flow email that you send up for approvals. Can we do something similar, letting people know, for example, maybe you send out on a Thursday evening or a Friday morning, by the way, you haven't started your time card for the week, or even letting the project manager know, hey, Jeff is one of the people that hasn't started his time card yet. We're going to email him, but we also want to let you know. Or if it's in an approved status, or what the different status is in. The idea is creating these automated emails to let you know where things at with your time cards in the system. So we're excited about that. The next one is AR application inquiry reversal enhancement. At a real high level, what we're doing here is the AR, when you're doing an inquiry and reversal enhancement entry, it defaults if I wanted to correct something that was made in a batch last period or 2 periods ago. When I do my reversal, it defaults to reversing in the current period. But a lot of people came to us and said, listen, what I really want to be able to do is have it post back to the original period so it takes it out of the system, and then I can move forward with making a new entry. So one of the things that we're adding is the ability to actually allow you to go back and reverse those original entries on those original business dates and periods that they were entered into the system. A long time ask. I sat down with a customer here over the last 6 to 8 months and talked about this and kind of got their feedback. So we're kind of at version 1 of kind of making that functionality available. The next was another conversation I had with a customer. They were going through the service call invoice reversal process and telling me that when they create invoices in the service call entry and there's an issue, the process for them to make a correction is very, we'll say chaotic or very hard to do. It's not a straightforward process. So we're adding a process that if an invoice is created and generated and you realize that something's wrong and you want to get rid of it and start from scratch, we will let you do that once, reverse it out, and then you can kind of start and put in the things that you want. Again, a process right now that is not really straightforward inside the service module, making that available here as well. So we're excited about that. Another one is a sales order, purchase order warning message. What is that? Well, one of the things that another customer came up to me and said is, hey, one of the things, it's a real basic change, Jeff, but this would really help me out, is that one of the features inside of the sales order screen is that you can say, I need a purchase order for these items. I want to generate a purchase order for these line items that I don't currently have in stock. And so when it does that, it creates the purchase order for you and kind of ties them together. So now there's that purchase order out there. What people were doing is they were doing that and then they were coming into the screen and going, oh, I don't need that, do I? And they delete something. What would happen is it would break the link between the sales order and the purchase order, and now they're stuck. They're kind of off and everything looks a little bit off. So what the ask was very simple. It said, makes sense. If someone is trying to delete a line that they didn't happen to know was tied to a purchase order, warn them and give them a chance to say no. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Very simple. But those are the things that are going to make their lives so much easier, because now they're going to know, oh, this sales order is tied to a purchase order. Before I delete it, I better go look and see what's going on and make sure that's really what I want to do. Other things, adding additional Power BI dashboards. Again, we're going to enhance that customer one. The hope is that we'll get a vendor one out there as well. We'll talk about these things in a second, but that's what we're doing there. Adding support. Again, this isn't scheduled. Adding support for SQL 2019 and Office 2019 as well. So those are the things that are the high-level items that we're looking forward to having here in CU4, and we'll talk about when that time frame is in just a little bit. But with that, I want to go back and talk about some of those things that we've kind of glanced over already. So obviously, you see, we continue to build out new enhancements and new tweaks to the Dynamics SL product, because obviously that's what we're trying to do, is to continue to make the product work better for you. And to be honest with you, I've been super excited because I've had a chance to work with a lot of great customers and partners over the last year to really come up with that list and really make sure we're doing things that are really going to impact people's working. But what I see impacting people even more than these lovely features we've added here are these 3 features: Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Apps. So what do these things do? Well, from Power BI, what Power BI is a way to surface your information that's in your Dynamics SL database. We're used to, transactional reporting with Crystal, where you're looking at, transaction lines and so forth. But the idea here is that we want to be able to take data that on the surface level is transactional and turn it into stuff that's more telling, more information that I can get data out of. The real simple example here, and I don't want to go too deep on this, but real simple example is someone was running a report and they went ahead and connected some information to their customer information inside of SL. And you can look at customer information in sales, and because you've got sales information and you have the customer information, you can actually click on it and say, okay, I want to see where my customers exist and where we're doing our sales by simply clicking on it. And it's hard to see, but you can look and create a little graph of the world and see where those customer sales are coming from. Now, they were looking at it just to get a better understanding, and they were able to take that data, but they happened to have somebody in the a legal department walk by and say, hey, what's that up on there? And they said, oh, this is where we're actually doing sales. And they said, we're doing sales in such and such state. That's interesting. I better check on something. So again, something that had nothing to do with what they were doing, but they were able to look at that data in a different way and be able to look at it, and it really made a difference in the way they do things. So what we have here is some of the dashboards. I briefly showed you an earlier customer example. Here's a little bit more built out version that we have here for projects that's available. This one allows you to look at your projects. It allows you to look at how we're doing labor and expenses on a project, the gross margin. Interesting in the gross margin, the blue bar is what's going on this month. The green bar is showing me what happened last month, so we can see our gross margin is increasing. That's a good thing. We also can look at labor, revenue, and expense and kind of drill down into the details of those as well. The nice part about these dashboards, as well as the one we showed you with customer, is that you can slice and dice the information in different ways. Here we can select it for a specific year, a specific period, top 10, top 5, whatever we want. We can also be able to see that information. This previous one was a month to date. This is actually looking at inception to date. So show me how things are going, the life of these projects, and tell me what the top 10 items that are sitting out there as well. This other one is really interesting, and I purposely left it off just to show you all the things that you can show. But the idea is, what are the top items and the bottom items? What should that be a clue to you? Well, my top projects, I want to make sure they're continuing to do well and they're getting what they need. My bottom projects, well, obviously they're not getting something that is needed, so I want to be able to look at them, find out what's going on, and be able to address it. Same with your project managers. Who are my top? Who are my bottom? Do I need to help them work together to be able to make those bottoms become closer to the top? Again, this one's really interesting. Again, you can connect this to your database of all the different ways you can slice things. And it's not just one slicer. You can choose multiple of these slicers. I want to be able to see my project date revenue. I want to be my expenses, labor, hours, all in one. You can really do a lot of great things. And know that these Power BI dashboards are just the beginning. If you have a partner that's versed in Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow, they can just take these things and run with them. So Power Apps, Jeff, I've seen a Power App, but what should I be thinking about when I think Power Apps? The thing that I really want you to think about is, what is that task that you are asked to do frequently, that if you could create a small app that would allow someone to view that information would make your life easier? You're a salesperson, you're on the road, you just want to know, do we have this inventory in stock? Why not create a little Power App that shows them just what they need, or something that shows the customer information and what they've ordered? That is the way to think of Power Apps. What are those little things that, you know what, I don't want people logging into SL, I don't need to open up access to the outside world, but if I could create a quick Power App, I'd love for people to do. And in case those two examples that I just talked about, being able to see the customer and what they've ordered and being able to quickly see what's in stock for inventory, are two examples of an actual customer I met who said, yep, it's so simple. I created a quick Power App, I threw the fields on a screen, I published it, and now the people who need it can get to it. So that is the power of that. It can be such a simple application. It's just a list of the items. You can get really graphical if you want to work with your inventory and add inventory information and be able to view that, or a little combination of all. I'm seeing kind of a Power BI, Power App kind of mixture together. And that's the nice thing. Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate, they all work together. So it's not three separate things, but they can work quite well together. On the Power Automate side, you've seen an example of what we did. Those are those notifications that we can send out. We'll show you a couple examples, but it is powerful beyond that. It can actually synchronize files between separate systems. It can collect data. It can actually be used, as we saw earlier, to send and receive an automated email to be able to approve things. So we've got a lot of different things you can do with Power Automate. And just to show you, in Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, there are connectors and pre-built things already in the system. Obviously, from our side, I'll talk about what it can do in the SL world, but no, there's lots of things you can do that can kind of unify your entire company. So don't think of Power Automate, Power BI, and Flow as just a financial thing. It can work across all your data inside of your company, which makes it even more powerful. Now, as far as what we've shipped with the product, so we do have flows that are shipping currently right now. So we have a lot of automated emails that'll let you know when a customer has created an account, an inventory, a project's created. You tell me who to automatically email, and at a certain time of day, we will let them know that something has been created for that day. Nothing's created this day, no email sent. Kind of straightforward. Next is let me know when my customers are over balance, or my projects or my vendors are over a certain balance. You can set up what that balance value is inside of them, and then automatically be emailed when they hit that. The approval process for the AP as well as GL, and also we can actually do notification of past due payments. Now we create an example inside of the system that you can look, but you can actually take that, customize it here, and create it. And here's just a couple examples of some of those. They actually look quite nice to me. I like it. We kind of do a grid idea of, Excel information showing you, for example, a new customer was created. Here's the customer ID, their name, and here's their class and when they were created. Again, you will get that automated email to see it. In this case, I can also click on the attachment and see if there's additional data I want to view as well. We want to be able to send out our past due documents, new vendor balances over a certain value. All that information can be combined together as an email, as an attachment. And again, these are just starting points. These are not the end results. Can they be used? 100%. But I really see you looking at it going, oh, you know what? I see that they're doing it for this area, but you know what area that I'd really like to get an automatic email is in this. And it is not rocket science. It's something you can do as simple as taking what we've provided to you, doing it yourself, or working with your partner to extend it out to what you need. Now, an example here just to show you how some things can work together. Hopefully you've seen this before, is my Power App and Power Automate Flow demo. What we wanted to be able to do is create an application so somebody remotely can take a look at customer balances due, look to connect to the contacts so they can contact those people, and if they see something wrong, be able to run an aging remotely, as well as be able to email the aging results to be able to see what they were. So we've created 2 versions of this application. Again, this is available to you. We have the AR customer balance in a phone format. How do I know it's phone? Well, because it's smaller and tinier and it will fit on my phone. Here I'm seeing my customer IDs, names, and outstanding balances. I can also drill down to the details, but before we do that, let's just show you we also have the same information available inside of a tablet format or desktop format. Same idea here. We can see a little bit more because we've got more space, but the idea is I can click on Broadwind Construction, drill down to the details, see a little bit more about them. We also have the ability to email and go ahead and send a call. If I'm on my phone, I can click on the icon to call somebody from my phone, be able to contact and say, you know what, why is your balance 408,000? Now we can see the details of which company it's coming out mostly out of, and we can talk to that person on my tablet or on my phone with the confidence of understanding where their balances are. Now, a situation might come to a lead that, you know what, I'm pretty sure they paid us earlier this week. Maybe it hasn't run the aging process yet. So we've added the ability to run the aging process remotely. They choose the statement cycle, hit the execute button, and as they hit execute on the SL server, it will run the aging process. This is not running on my phone or my tablet, it's running there. And I can have it automatically send the results of that aging to me. So I purposely left everything open so you can see pretty much everything that's in that aging table. But again, you can customize it to see just what's important to you. So great functionality around Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Apps that really, really encourage you to look into. These are all available from SL 2018 as free things to start with. Take them, run with them, and all you really need to know is that you need if you have a Office 365 account, you more than likely would have access to these already to get licensing. Some of the on-premise or desktop apps are free for you to start using. And then as you start using it, you can decide into if you need more people and potential licensing needs on top of that, but it's a great bit of functionality. Now, our web apps has been a long time solution for us here that allows us to access SL remotely. So nothing greatly changing here. Obviously, I won't go into deep here, but just making sure we are continuing to do our new release once a month, adding new features and new functionality. If you need to learn more about your web apps and what you can do, please feel free to reach out to your Dynamics SL partner to learn more. But basically, obviously, in the dark blue, a lot of this is project related because that's where people have been using our product remotely to do your time entry, expense entry. But note that you can also do things like setting up a brand new project, setting up a resource, assigning to them, checking on your project status, as well as you can actually do reporting complete remoting it. It's non-project, but it's reporting. It can be any projects. Project, non-project reports are available remotely. And again, nothing special I need to load on my machine. I can run those reports. They run at the server. I can view them and be able to see them. So again, check with your partner to learn more about the web apps. Our roadmap, just to show you as I apologize, we're running as fast as we can. You can see what we've been doing. We've been pretty much doing a twice a year release for SL 2018. And the thing to note about this, and I didn't talk about it, but I'm going to do this right before we end here, is note that the nice thing about these releases, they build on top of each other. So for example, if you're on SL 2018 CU2 today, and you saw me give the demonstration of CU3 and you go, ooh, really like that feature. The way that they're built is from CU2, CU3, CU4, CU5. They're built to basically deploy right on top of the previous version. So if you go up to, you're on CU2 today and you decide when release CU4 here in the second quarter of this calendar year, that you might say, oh, I just want to jump up to CU4, you can do that and it will load the appropriate things on top of it. So it is built to add on top, it's built on top, it doesn't require you to do a full uninstall and reinstall, and that's kind of the nature of it. So if you see something when in CU3 that you want, go ahead and install it. Nothing in there that you need right now, and then you see something in CU4 you want, you can go ahead and install it at a later time. So lots of flexibility. That's our current schedule for this year. Again, we're working hard away and getting ready to lock down things for SLCU4 and get them out the door here. And the end of the second quarter is kind of our time frame right now. So very excited. Lots going on. We're not stopped. We're all working from home, but we're all continuing to develop Dynamics SL and continue to make the product better and better based on the wonderful feedback from customers and partners like you. With that, Val, I appreciate everyone's time. And Val,
Yep.
if we have any questions, let's go ahead and open it up here. I know we're kind of, there's a lot to go
Short
through.
on time, but
Yes.
doesn't look like there are any questions in the question pane at this time. Since we are low on time, if you have any questions or if you would like to get any questions on SL answered, please feel free to email sales@plumlineconsulting.com and we will get those questions answered for you in a timely fashion. We will also post this webinar online, so please feel free to download it and share it with anyone that you would like. Again, thank you for your time today. We also have, if you check the chat, we have Jeff's email, which is v-jsuwyn@microsoft.com. You can email him directly with your questions or any new features that you would like to see in another release. So please stay safe, everybody. Wash those hands, and we thank you for attending our webinar today. Have a great rest of your day.